one of the purposes of all that negative media is to prevent the rest of the Indian population from listening to the message from Rahul Gandhi. You may agree with it or you may not. I disagree on many issues with him. But I think he has a vision and it's worth listening to and worth engaging. And through a dialectical process, it is quite possible that a better vision may emerge. But in order to have the dialectical process, we need to be able to listen to him. And that's what I intend to do during this conversation. Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtedar Khan, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about Rahul Gandhi's visit to the United States. He was here for a very short period of time, basically 1 day in Dallas, Texas, and 2 days in Washington, D.C. He had several public appearances. He spoke with students. He spoke to the members of the diaspora, both in Texas as well as in Washington. He spoke at my alma mater, the Georgetown University. He also basically answered questions at the National Press Club, and he also met people on the Capitol Hill. So even though he was here for a very short period of time, he hit most of the important constituencies. He spoke to the media, he spoke to students, he spoke to diaspora. The difference is that a lot of the students would actually be Indians who are studying here in the US, and diaspora would be American Indians, many of whom were born and brought up here. And of course, he also met with officials from both the State Department as well as members of the Congress during his visit to the Capitol. For those of you who are actually interested in knowing what actually happened, can go to his YouTube channel and watch most of his lectures, and his press conference is available there. It was to me very surprising to see how the media in India went totally crazy. You know, the word probably that best describes the reaction is batshit crazy. The accusations of him being a traitor, that he's betrayed India, he's an enemy of the state, and so on and so forth, were unbelievable. It seems that Rahul Gandhi's trip has triggered a kind of paranoia, a panic among BJP supporters, members of the BJP, even people as high up as Amit Shah, as well as the media that is quite attendant to BJP, what is often referred to in India colloquially as the Godi media, which is essentially mainstream media, which relies on the government for advertisements and therefore tends to be very pro-government. I think that Rahul Gandhi's personality is polarizing to some extent. He generates hope among some, and he generates hate among others. His trip here was quite promising, but also generated a lot of panic back home. So before we get into the details of it, please do the needful, that is subscribe to Conversations, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't hesitate to share this video as widely as possible. And of course, if you are interested in supporting Conversations, you can do so by becoming a member of Conversations, by joining the channel. The button to join the channel is right next to the button to subscribe to the channel. I read the criticism and the hate and anger that was being expressed on social media, and it was stunning to see that no one seemed to want to understand what Rahul Gandhi is saying. They all just wanted to condemn him, often misinterpreting and deliberately misinterpreting the content of his message, the content of his speech. And I'll point out a couple of them and show you how he has been misunderstood. It seems that the BJP was consumed by a sense of panic that Rahul Gandhi was going to damage their constituency and their control over the Indian diaspora. And so they were trying their best to delegitimize him and marginalize him by attacking him in whatever way possible. So to me, that was very interesting. But it was also interesting to see that here in the US now, government officials, media, and others were also eager to meet Rahul Gandhi, because when he came last year, he was a suspended MP. This time, he's the leader of the opposition. And of course, he's riding on the unexpectedly excellent performance of the India alliance. Also, the inability of Narendra Modi to get a majority in Indian parliament. So in that sense, there was a lot more, shall we say, respect extended to him even before he landed, because now he was seen as politically more successful than he was last year. Now, as for misinterpretation, I don't want to waste too much time in dealing with the negatives that is coming out in India, because one of the purposes of all that negative media is to prevent the rest of the Indian population from listening to the message from Rahul Gandhi. You may agree with it or you may not. I disagree on many issues with him. But I think he has a vision and it's worth listening to and worth engaging. And through a dialectical process, it is quite possible that a better vision may emerge. But in order to have the dialectical process, we need to be able to listen to him. And that's what I intend to do during this conversation. But I do want to make one point. So, for example, take a look at this picture, in which this picture is being used a lot on social media, where Rahul Gandhi is being attacked for meeting with Ilhan Omar, who is a member of the U.S. Congress. So imagine U.S. is supposed to be a strategic partner of the United States, but meeting a congressperson is considered as somehow betrayal of India. But she is seen as a very pro-Kashmir and very pro-Pakistan, and therefore anti-India. And this picture is being used to attack Rahul Gandhi. So the first thing that I should point out was that Rahul Gandhi was not meeting with Ilhan Omar. He was meeting with American leaders. And I'm sure there must have been an email or invitation sent to a lot of people. These are the people who showed up. And you can see in this photograph all the people who are there, including people from the State Department and from the Congress. The reason why, in this picture with Ilhan Omar, you should see the man standing right next to Rahul Gandhi on his left in the blue suit with the blue tie and the white shirt is actually the youngest member of the Indian caucus. His name is Thanedar. He is a member of the Congress. He is from Michigan. He created the Dharma caucus to protect Hindus and Sikhs and Jains. And so this guy is an advocate for Hinduism. You can Google him and see how strongly he is fighting for Hindus in Bangladesh right now. He has introduced a bill in the US Parliament against Hindu phobia. And he's the guy standing right next to Rahul Gandhi. And Rahul Gandhi is getting no credit for meeting with him and standing with him shoulder to shoulder. So that tells you that criticism of Rahul Gandhi is less than honest. And it is a shame that a lot of people, I'm sure, who recognize Thanedar, they should, because he's Indian American, do not recognize the fact that there were 2 Indian Americans out of the 5 in the Congress who actually came to meet Rahul Gandhi. The other was Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna, in my opinion, has a greater chance of becoming a president of the United States than even Vivek Ramaswamy. So Ro Khanna is the future of the Democratic Party to a great extent. So this is one point I wanted to make as to how there has been a deliberate attempt to attack and distort what Rahul Gandhi was doing in the United States. What I have decided to do in this conversation is to talk about some of the important themes that Rahul Gandhi touched upon during his various presentations and engagements with Americans and Indian Americans during his short tour. I must also point out that the way Rahul Gandhi handled just a large number of questions from the audience at the National Press Club. You never see Narendra Modi ever coming up and having a press conference like that. So it was refreshing to see an Indian leader grapple with tough questions and having the courage and the intellectual wherewithal to address some of the questions, which are quite sophisticated. Not that all his answers were best or correct, but the fact that he was thinking of these issues and was not afraid to run away after making a speech. That is refreshing, remarkable, and new for those of us who have been watching Indian politics for a few years now. So the first thing that often came up was his yatras, his walk from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, 4,000 kilometers. And while talking about that, there are several things that Rahul Gandhi said, which shows that he has become a much better, much deeper politician and more thoughtful because of that particular journey. And you can see that he saw it as something very organic. He explained that the reason why he went on the yatra was primarily because all avenues for the opposition had been shut down. You know that Congress party's bank accounts were frozen, so they didn't have much money during the election period. Prior to that, the media doesn't really report what these people say, if only to attack them and distort their messages. The government agencies were also targeting them. Some of the chief ministers who are part of the India alliance, like Kejriwal, were put into prison, and so on and so forth. So Rahul Gandhi argues that the capacity of the opposition to speak to the public and share their vision and their promise was shut down. The only way he could actually talk to the country was to walk and talk. And that is what he did. But he said something very interesting, which indicates growth. And he said that, look, it was not me who was talking after the yatra or during the yatra. I was listening to all of these people, to common people, young people who had hopes of the future, people in search of jobs, women in search of security, people in search of meaning in life, and so on and so forth. They came and talked to him, he listened to them, and then he found that he himself was talking in their voice. So the answers that he was giving subsequently and during the yatra were the ideas and messages that were coming from the people. So this is an important message. So the yatra was quite transformative for him. And in many ways, I think the success of the Congress party in the South, in Karnataka, and in the Lok Sabha election partly goes to the yatra itself, because the yatra allowed Rahul Gandhi to present himself as someone very different from what he was seen until that moment. So it was very interesting to see how Rahul Gandhi was reflecting on his journey, because it's not just a journey from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, but it's a journey from someone who was basically disqualified from parliament to the leader of the opposition. Another theme that was very common, that showed up in many of his discourses, was his desire to distinguish himself and the Congress from RSS and BJP. And he basically said that RSS and BJP have the Hindutva agenda, and the goal of them to create a unitary India with just one kind of thinking. There is no tolerance or acceptance for difference. And so people who are of different caste, different religion, different community, different ways of thinking, even politically, are going to be suppressed, not tolerated. And therefore, when he was talking about Sikhs not being able to wear the pagadi, he was not saying that is the condition today, but he says when the Hindutva project reaches its full success, when India does become a full Hindu Rashtra, non-Hindu minorities will not have the freedom of religion to practice their faith as they do at this moment. So he feels that the RSS and BJP are basically pushing this Hindutva agenda, which is detrimental to minorities. And also, he argued that the way RSS thinks, especially BJP thinks of governance, is centralizing power in Delhi, especially in one person. So it's becoming more like Narendra Modi's dictatorship, even though we have elections. And it is also undermining India's federalism, because India is a union of states. He keeps saying that, like the United States, it is not one country, it's a federation of many states. It's a country, but it's not like Saudi Arabia, which is not a federation, for example. But India is a federation, which means the states have their own areas where they can govern, and the central government. And he feels that under BJP, there is a reduction in the rights and scope for the states to chart their own developmental paths. Whereas he argues that his vision is inclusive. There are many ways of imagining India. Religious freedoms will be respected, and there will be a lot of inclusion of people who are from backward classes and minorities. And he also feels that there will be more decentralization and states will have more power than the center if he wins elections and if his party comes to power. He does talk about caste and reservations. So this was a big theme, kept coming repeatedly up and often misinterpreted. So for example, the fact that people get jumped on the 90% line in India and saying, no, he's lying about it and saying that 90% of the people have no opportunities in India. That was not what he was saying. He said something very interesting. He said that if you look at all the people who are in power, whether in the government sector or in the private sector, people who are secretaries in bureaucracies, people who are CEOs in the corporate sector, people who are anchors in the media. If you look at all of them who are in power in governance in India, you will find that all of them come from the upper caste Hindu. I mean, right now, there isn't a single Muslim in the Indian cabinet of 72 people. So that tells you that minorities are being pushed aside, people from lower caste and others are being pushed aside. He argues that 90% of India is composed of those who are from the tribal background, from lower caste, Dalits, and people of religious minorities. These are the four categories, he says, together 90%. And they are profoundly underrepresented in positions of power everywhere in India. So the way he wants to address this issue is by first having a caste census. So we have a report card. There has been no caste census in India since I think 1911 or 31 or whatever, before independence. So we really don't know what the composition of India is. And so first he wants to have a report card and then a survey to see how well are people being represented. So if there's a large segment of population that is being marginalized, then this is not a fair country. So in order to India to become fair, we need to know what is the level of marginalization, and then reservations will be used to address the problem. So he's not against reservation. In fact, I bet you that if you do have a caste census, there will be need to revise the quota systems for various castes and, in fact, breach the 50% limit that the Constitution at the moment imposes on reservations in India. So people who are saying that he's against reservations are actually lying. He is for more reservations, but before that, he wants to have a census, a caste census, to actually determine what percentage of people are Dalits and what percentage of people are lower caste, and similarly allocate quotas. He was asked the question about meritocracy, but he basically explained that we can't talk about it meaningfully until we have a caste census. He did talk about production and manufacturing when asked about jobs, as to why there is such a problem of jobs. Highly educated people in India do not have jobs. India needs to generate about 1 crore of jobs every year, and they are unable to do that. So what's the problem? And of course, the problem is that India's economy, even though it is the fastest growing economy among major economies, it is now close to $4 trillion. But if you look at GDP per capita, it's only 2,700 or 2,800. India is a low income economy. In spite of the growth, it is a low income economy because its population also is growing. It's the biggest country in the world. So Rahul Gandhi feels that the deficit in manufacturing is the reason why there are no jobs. In India, 17% of India's GDP comes from manufacturing. And because that is so small, people are actually, because there is not enough growth in service industry, people are actually going back to agriculture, which is not a good thing. So he says that China in the last 20, 30 years have presented a very successful manufacturing model, but India cannot emulate that model that China has successfully implemented, because China is an authoritarian country and India is a democracy. So democracy places certain limitations. He never spells it out, really, because if you look at the global economies, most of the richest countries high-income countries are also democracies, unless they are getting oil, like United Arab Emirates. So most countries which have normal economies are democracies. So democracies are doing well in terms of creating jobs and providing growth to their societies. But nevertheless, he feels that because India is a democracy, it cannot implement the Chinese model. So he has two solutions to that. One place, he said that India should work with the United States to present a model of manufacturing which comes with democracy. Okay, sounds good, but what is the plan? And the second thing that he said was, and he talks about how certain parts of India specialize in certain areas, like if you go to Muradabad, they are good at XYZ, you go to this particular place. So he says his model of growth and job creation for India would be to focus on small and medium scale industries and enterprises. And the way he is going to grow that is by providing technology and infusion of loans or capital. So he says that if we give more capital and more technology to small and medium scale enterprises, then India will grow faster and create more jobs. Right now, the India model is to give all the money to just the top few companies. In fact, he talks about how 16 lakh crores or whatever loan forgiveness was given to just 25 heads and owners, big rich people in the country. So this model of investing in large corporations, big billionaires, etc., is not the way to create production, but is to invest to a small scale. This is a debate about a growth model. And it is not a praise of China, it's an acceptance of reality. China's manufacturing is booming. It's in some critical areas, it has 50% of the global capacity is in China. And it is also true that India cannot implement the Chinese model. And so he has an alternate plan and should be open to debate. So rather than attacking him as a traitor who is praising China, what we need to do is to say, okay, this is your plan. Let's test it somewhere. You are in charge of Karnataka, try it there and show us that that can work. And finally, he spoke about foreign policy. And last time when I met him on his trip at the Hudson Institute, a lot of the questions there were on foreign policy, and it was very interesting that on the question of Ukraine, his answer was that his policies are not going to be very different from that of the current government. So, and he said the same thing again today when asked about the United States and India's relations, in India's role in Ukraine. He basically said that he sees very little difference between what his approach is and what Narendra Modi and the BJP government. So on foreign policy, there seems to be a total agreement between him and the current dispensation. And I found that a bit surprising. And he dodged at the National Press Club when he was asked a question about what is your view of the role that the United States is playing in Ukraine and in Gaza. He neither endorsed the US position nor criticized it. He simply pivoted to China once again. I think when he thinks foreign affairs, he thinks only China, and he's obsessed with how to combat China and Chinese power, Chinese economy. So that's fine. That's most Americans today are obsessed with how to combat China and the growing power of China. I think that is better than pretending that China's economy is about to collapse and everything about China is not really true. But I suspect that Rahul Gandhi does not think much about foreign policy. He thinks primarily a lot about domestic politics. And therefore, he feels more comfortable to talk about domestic politics. And he really does not want to engage on foreign policy because he primarily is not thinking about it beyond that, oh, we face this tremendous challenge from China, both in the security sphere as well as in the economic sphere. So I think that all said and done, there is I see a lot of growth in Rahul Gandhi in the last 2 years, and you can see that in performance. And so I think that this was a very successful trip, in spite of the fact that there's a lot of criticism. I think all the stuff that is being told about him especially by mainstream media and the BJP leaders, might actually help him by making people become curious about what he said, so they can go to his own YouTube channel or other venues and actually see what his actual statements and speeches were about. Clearly, for Indian Americans, there was a lot of hope and a lot of promise from Rahul Gandhi. And in India, there was obviously a lot of panic and a lot of hate. So I hope you found this conversation thought-provoking, and also importantly, I'm doing for you what the Indian media should have been doing, to present to you what he said in a more nuanced and an analytical fashion and let you decide. So I'm not saying that his production plan is the best plan, so I'm just telling you what he said, and so you decide and you think for yourself. The goal of conversation is to make you think, not to spoon feed you with ideas and conclusions. So I hope that I did manage to trigger a lot of thought. So please subscribe to Conversations, like this video, press the bell icon, share this video widely. So please share this more widely, so my analysis can reach more and more people. And also, if you want to support Conversations, please join the channel. Until next time, I'm your host, Muqtedar Khan. Take care.